And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
When one has too much time on their hands, they tend to relegate themselves to two particular activities. And one I would consider contemplation, and the other, unfortunately, I would categorize as watching television. I've had plenty of that in the past couple of weeks, unfortunately, because I had a massive knee surgery 2 weeks ago Monday, which relegated me to just either sitting or doing exercises. And it's a very painful exercise, very painful time. It still is. In fact, before I sat down here at the studio, with full entourage is here, believe it or not, and I had to ask myself, have I just lost my mind? I should have rebroadcasted this morning, but I've just felt so compelled to be here. I'm a trooper, right?
You are a trooper.
I am a trooper. Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
I think he lost his mind.
Well, he lost that long ago.
I think he should have said he lost a match at WWE.
Well, I'm on a. Here's a guy who's a veteran of nine triathlons, and here I'm walking on a walker. You know, when you think next month I'm going to be 70 years old. My mind is still in the 15-year-old bracket. I won't be 16 because 16-year-olds are snobby. You know? I mean that. That's
and
my
they're
mentality.
Smart-asses,
you know,
too.
they're smart asses, right?
You may mention the reason you're on a walker.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because I had knee surgery, massive knee surgery. I guess I didn't mention that, did I?
Yeah.
Well, you said massive knee surgery.
Oh, I did.
You didn't say what kind of knee surgery.
Oh, okay. Well, they had to replace the whole knee. They had to cut the bone.
It was a massive attack.
Okay, we don't have to get into
We don't want to hear
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's worse than a toothache.
Excuse me, guys. This is my show. You mind shutting up?
We might shut up. Will you shut up, please? Shut up, will you?
Time out. Very good. We have a bell here this morning.
No.
Well, you know, when you sit there, you can do a certain amount of reading, which is difficult at times because you're on this passive motion machine and you're upside down with the thing. And so you wind up watching a considerable amount of television, which I hate doing. But you learn a lot, you know, by doing that, especially when you're watching television, not because you enjoy it, but because you're relegated to doing it and you're trying to determine, what am I getting out of this? I don't know if my knee surgery was in fact more painful than watching television. It's a horrible experience, and I continue doing it. Now, there are a few programs that I do enjoy. I'm a hot rod guy. I'm a muscle car guy.
Yeah.
I watch the the Pastime and things like that. And,
Wheels.
Yeah. But other than that, I may watch Pawn Stars. I love Chumley, my boy, and but that's about it. And the History Channel. But in watching television, you realize that this has got to be a reflection of our society. There was a stark contrast at one point where I turned on Turner Classic Movies, and there was a movie named Compulsion. It was with Orson Welles, 1956, I believe. It was in black and white, and that black and white was so sharp, it was like super HD.
It's more dramatic than color.
Oh, I dabbled in photography when I was young, and I only took black and white shots. The only thing I did. I didn't like color at all. And it's so dramatic. Anyway, so I was watching this movie, and I realized that things were so different back then. All the men were thin, except for Orson Welles. But everyone was thin. Everyone seemed to be independent. They seemed to be rugged. There was no compliance and no excuses and no funny talk and no nothing. It was all straight talk. It was serious. The camera stayed in this one room for several minutes. Maybe it zoomed in slightly on Orson Welles from time to time and then, zoomed out again. And it made me think that the contrast between the old movies back in the 1930s and 1940s to today. I mentioned that the men were all thin, and in all movies are that way, in the old movies. The only person that was overweight was the boss. Yeah, the banker, right,
Yeah.
the banker or the boss. And he had a cigar, and he sat behind his desk, and all he does was puff smoke, and he was the meanest son of a gun in the world, But everybody else was thin. If you see the shots of people on the street, they had a shot of people walking down the street. Everyone was thin. Everyone walked with a purpose. Everyone was neatly dressed. All the men were in suits. When it shows a man who's not wearing a suit, he may have dirt on his face, coal, for example. He may work in a mine, and it shows that ruggedness. But in his eyes, you can tell the person who has that position, and they're not told to do this, but you know this. You know that they're working hard for their money. They're shoveling coal, but they know that they're free, that they know that they're working toward something. They're shoveling coal today because tomorrow is going to be another day. It's going to be a better day. They're going to use the fruits of their labor to move forward, to move their family forward. And you can tell it in their eyes. And these are actors. You can see this in their eyes. It made me think if in fact we had to ask the question today, how would we define the United States? Think about that. That should be the most frightening question we ever ask ourselves. How do we define ourselves? Now, I could give you some ideas of how I would have defined ourselves back 50 years ago. It would have been, and tell me if I'm wrong, 855-866-1170, 855-866-1170. And I apologize if I stumble. I'm sitting here with the knee all taped up and in quite a bit of pain. So please be patient with me. Thank you. What if I said rugged individualism? Spirited. Home of the brave. Home of the brave, land of the free. I mean, all those make sense. I mean, we identify with those when we look back at movies prior to World War II, or World War II, and maybe shortly thereafter. All those sort of fit very nicely in place. You can say, yes, people around the world considered us as individuals. We were truly free. And everyone admired the fact that we were people that weren't relegated by some bureaucracy and that controlled every aspect of our lives as they did in Europe, as they did all over the world, especially in South America, in Mexico. We were, in fact, different.
And we all worked. We didn't ship jobs overseas.
That's right, and we all worked. There was no job beneath us. We weren't afraid of anything. In fact, the fear drove us. Fear drove us to succeed. This is how I see where we were. My father came here from Italy, Naples, Italy. He had not a dime on him, not a dime. Did not speak the language. Knew a couple of people here. And he tells a story of when he borrowed $14 from his future mother-in-law, which he regretted all his life. She reminded him every day what a bum he was and that she had lent him $14. And, of course, he wound up supporting her in her later years. My father started several companies. And if we had a few hours, I would tell you the stories about them. And I can guarantee you, you wouldn't believe one of them. Not one. I'll give you an inkling. He made floor cleaner with perfume, so it would smell good. And he called it Aqualina. Because all the cleaners then smelled, I mean, they were like chemicals. They were like
Yeah.
Ammonia.
Yeah, ammonia.
Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, it was awful smelling.
And
Yeah.
he would commandeer the kids from the neighborhood to get their red wagons, their carts, put it in carts, and say, in Brooklyn, go deliver to the stores, any store. Put it in there and walk away. Then I'll take inventory a week later. I'm not kidding you.
No computers, no inventory check, just
No pen and pencil.
yeah.
But folks, I'm telling you, it is such a stark contrast from who we were at one time. Some people that we can define, each one of us could define who we were at one time. And I defy today anyone to attempt to define who we are today. Do we have a break coming? Let's go to break now. We'll come back. To summarize, we could have described ourselves at one time as adventurous. Adventurous. Just think about that. Adventurous, folks. That word, you never hear that word. It is almost as if that word has become unacceptable to American culture. Adventurousness means that people become independent, go and do what they want, and discover new things independently. How about a nation of bold individuals? And as I said before, home of the brave, land of the free. We just don't identify with those anymore. In fact, the only time that we do identify with those terms is when we are watching a reality show. Before we go on, I want to make mention that our advertisers, our sponsors, make this show possible. Our advertisers and our sponsors believe in the message of this station. The message of the station is very simple. It's not a political station. It's not news. We're not pundits here. This is a station that's advocating understanding the true concept of liberty, what that really means. Because once we understand, we comprehend the concept of liberty, we in fact can renew ourselves in this nation which is rotting around us. We can be that plant that starts growing in the middle of the rubble, regardless of the circumstances. But we cannot do that unless we understand the concept of liberty. For example, the custom embroidery by Rose. She does all of my T-shirts. She does a wonderful job.
Did she do your hat too?
She did the hats.
That's a great looking hat.
She does everything. And if you need something, you should at least consider calling Rose. Why? Because Rose supports your freedom. There are few of us. Let's not go outside to people who don't support that message. They're not supporting this station. It is important that you support the sponsors. Alltech Fire and Security. They do a wonderful job of security with the cameras and all that. Something, unfortunately, that we need today. So when you think of security and you have a question, call Alltech. But please, when you call either one or you visit either one of these sponsors, do me a favor and mention the fact that you heard about them. You learned about them on Liberty Talk Radio. Let's start reaching out and helping one another without the need for government or legislation or assistance from anyone. It should be us, you and me, standing on our own 2 feet as absolutely, totally free people.
Instead of the United Corporation of America.
Right. And, after watching Television USA, I thought it was going to be the United Stupidity of America. Really, that's all I kept on thinking of, the United Stupidity of America. That's custom embroidery and more by Rose and Alltech Security. I'll dedicate this segment of the program to those two. And we have others, and I'll talk about. Now, as I was watching these TV, there's a lot of other things I realized. First of all, do you know that they do not keep the camera on any particular shot, any particular scene or person for more than 2 or 3 seconds?
Oh, I know. It drives you crazy.
Right. Do yourself a favor.
And they don't use tripods either.
That's right. Turn the TV, the sound off, and watch the television. If you were watching Compulsion, you would be seeing, by Orson Welles, 1956. You would see men in a room speaking to one another. You can sense the emotion, the individuality of each person.
You can see it on their faces.
You can see it on their faces. And you know what's interesting about the people back then? People failed. People failed back then.
That's right.
It is amazing. People did things and they failed. And men cried because they failed. They let their family down. And when you watch television today, the only time, folks, that I ever see anyone smile these days is on television. I never see anyone smile. I can go to the coffee shop and there can be 25 people in there. Look around. You don't find one person smiling. It is rare that you find anyone smiling.
Even more at the grocery stores.
Absolutely. Everyone's unhappy.
Yeah.
Everyone. I told a friend of mine the other day he's interested in buying a fancy car. I said, let me tell you something about fancy cars.
Okay.
I said, I have an opinion about everything you know. And I said,
No.
I make it a point whenever I see a new Mercedes sports car or something like that, a real expensive $88,000 car, 2-seater, and I'm sitting in the light, I look in that car to see if that person's smiling while they're driving.
You're right. They got
And
a
I
frown
said,
on their face.
Never, I tell you, the most
Yeah.
unhappy, if they want to be truthful, the most unhappy people in the world are people who own expensive sports cars driving around in Tulsa. Me, I'm happy as a clam. I got a 1996 Subaru Outback I love, 5-speed transmission,
How many miles on it?
271,000 miles. Could I afford another new car? Hell, I could afford a Bugatti if I wanted to. I really could, I'd be honest with you.
Do you even know what a
What?
Bugatti is?
Oh, yeah. In fact,
you do?
they came out
Okay.
with a new Bugatti. It's $2.1 million.
Are you serious?
Yeah, $2.1 million. And the taxes on it is $200, the excise tax on the car, $236,000 alone.
Wow.
The tires come from France. They're $40,000. I saw it yesterday on a car show. An unbelievable car. It's made out of basically carbon fiber and whatever. It has 1,000. No, the old version had 1,001 horsepower. This one had slightly over 1,200 horsepower.
Gee.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And this guy actually got to. There's only 90 in the entire world. Anyway, I go on.
Yeah, you digress.
And so there's so many things I notice. I notice that we cannot fix on anyone for more than a second or two. And sometimes the camera goes from one person, it goes click, 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 click. We have trained our minds that we should not concentrate or think about anything. We should just accept what we see. Because in the old movies, you actually thought through the process. You were thinking with the actors and actresses. You say, what do they mean by that? Why are they saying that? Why are they being so cruel? Why are they being so... Whatever the case may be. Now there's no time for that. It just moves from one person to another person. And everyone knows how to do everything. Everyone. If you find like the hero of the movie, and he finds a bomb made in North Korea, a rocket, he knows exactly how to disassemble it as if he's been practicing it all his life. And then from there, he can get on a computer and click, 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 and he can break into any code. Then he can get in and he knows all the karate and jiu-jitsu and all this other stuff. Then he gets into his sports car and he speeds off. And the other day, I was watching one movie. This was absolutely remarkable. I had no idea what the movie's about. I was channel surfing because I was going absolutely out of my mind. And here we were. There's a guy in this scene. I guess there was drugs or something like that. And there must have been 15, 20 people in this large room, all with Uzis and AK-47s firing at each other. I mean, people were killing. First of all, why you stand in a room with a gun and stand up and fire is beyond me. But they were having a great time. Everyone, absolutely everyone died except for the main character of the movie, the macho guy. He was standing in the middle of the room with his Uzi, and he shot everyone. If they were behind a concrete pillar, he got them. No one hit him. There must have been 20 people firing at him. Not in a room. Not one person hit. Of course, then he walks out, and then he gets in his Bugatti, and he drives off, and go, oh, isn't that great?
Was he smiling?
Oh, smile! This guy was ecstatic. No, he wasn't smiling.
Oh,
he was the meanest SOB you've seen in your life. I mean, he was just so, like, oh, yeah, no, I did that. I'll have lunch, and then I'll come back and do it again. We sit there and accomplish absolutely nothing. And our reality now are these stupid reality shows.
And that's because producers, they're cheap to produce.
Oh, yeah, that's cost anything to produce. Yeah. And people watch them. Mm-hmm. And they sit there for hours and hours and hours. I'll tell you one thing. When people say, I say, hey, Bob, did you get to do this? They go, well, no, I didn't have time. The next question, I say, Bob, just don't care if you ever do this thing. I don't give a damn. But let me ask you a question. How many hours, rounded off to the 20, how many hours of TV did you watch last week? Now, if that guy was being honest, he'd have to say, well, 86. But he didn't have 5 minutes to do what he had to do. Because we're too busy watching what other people are doing. Now, if I had to define who we are today, we're a bunch of sissies. I made a broadcast last week. It's called the Sissification of America on the internet. You should listen to it. LibertyTalkRadio.com. Listen to it. Because we're afraid now of our neighbors. They may be predators. We're afraid of immigrants. They may take our jobs away. We're afraid of individualism because then we're different. We're going to get in trouble. We're afraid of reality, folks. We are a nation that is afraid of reality. We are sitting here waiting to be told what to do by the authorities. That's who we are today. We should be ashamed of ourselves. And this program is addressing exactly that. What freedom really means. Let's go to break.
Less than 3% of you people read books. Less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. So if you want the truth, go to yourselves. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs.
Sure hope you are still with us. I'm sorry, I'm dragging a little bit today this morning, folks, because I'm here under, not mental duress, but physical duress.
Gunpoint? You're here under gunpoint?
Yeah, gunpoint, yeah. I think that would have been a little bit easier. I debated whether to come or not, and I'll be honest with you, I love radio. I love talk radio. I've been doing it now for, Jesus, coming on 9 years. 9 years. And I was forced into this. I spoke professionally on the subject of management, and I'd love to tell. I'm going to take a few seconds out to tell you about that. I was a manager all my life. I managed businesses. I had management jobs. I owned my own business, and I mean, who could be more qualified than me than to talk about management? That's what I did. I had a degree in Bachelor of Business Administration, which was heavily geared in management. And also, I studied it. I read all the books. Back then, all the books by Peter Drucker. I went back to the turn of the century.
Great books, too, by Peter Drucker.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Peter Drucker and I'm sorry, my mind is fuzzy. I can name you a dozen other guys, but they just lost me for a second. Tom Peters was another one.
Yeah.
You know, with the but I went way back to the turn of the century, the 1900s, where they wrote the first books on management, because I never recognized that it was a discipline, if you will, and there was one by a tailor, and he talked about how they experimented with lighting in a factory and how they increased the lighting, and when they increased the lighting, productivity went up, and then it shocked the hell out of them when they decreased the lighting and the productivity went up again. But it was a fascinating book, absolutely. But so I studied this almost all my life. Where most of my friends were out at the lake, having fun, with their catamarans, I'm serious. I would be home, literally outlining management books by some of the best, the Peter Druckers, if you will, of this world. And I read several of his books. Unfortunately, Peter Drucker was all wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that strange?
Yeah.
I say, oh, yeah, Joe, you're all wrong. Who the hell are you, to say Peter Drucker is wrong? The man is world-renowned, world-renowned, And I'll tell you where I came from. This is where the station comes from. This is when you start thinking critically and critically until you get down to the core. Well, here I was giving speeches, and I was getting paid pretty good money for this. And I enjoyed doing it. No, I shouldn't say I didn't enjoy doing it. Let me be honest. I didn't truly enjoy it. I enjoyed speaking. I didn't enjoy the subject, although I supposedly or thought that I knew a lot about it. But I never felt, when you're like 99% there, but there's that 1% that's missing?
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Every time I gave a speech, and I would get applause. Hey, oh, thank you, Mr. Cristiano. They ask questions, and I give all the canned answers. And there's something wrong with what I am saying. So I kept on reading book after book after book after book. Again, by the masters in management. And I never came to rest with it. I said, how come why am I so damn different? I'm not smart. That's for sure. And that's one of the problems I have. I'm just not smart. I'm not smart enough to comprehend something that I've done all my life. And I was getting truly disgusted with myself, frustrated with the fact that people take a course in management, they understand it. I study it for 35 years. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Well, that's the way I felt. Now, this is the God's honest truth, folks. I mean, I take this to my grave. I swear to God. I was reading. I was a Monday. I took a day off and I was studying. I had this big speech to give. I was finishing up the book called Management by Peter Drucker. That's what it's called, Management. It was 907 pages long of small print.
It's a classic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was on page 786, and there I am outlining the book. Here I am. I'm 40-something years old. I'm outlining a book by Peter Drucker on something that I've done all my life. I've spoke professionally about, I've written articles about, and here I am outlining a book as if I'm going to school for the first time. And guess what? I have no idea what I'm doing. And I got to the point with such total frustration. I never forget the time. And I'll tell you exactly what happened, okay? And don't get too disgusted with me and hang up. But I stood there. I had to go to the bathroom. I drank too much coffee. And I'm walking to the bathroom. I got hit with lightning. I'm not kidding you. This was like lightning. It was as if, they hear about these rogue lightning waves,
yeah.
where guys under a tree. In fact, a friend of ours got killed. Perfectly clear day. Perfectly clear.
Yeah, amazing.
Sitting under a tree. Her husband and her son are out fishing. She's under this big tree reading a book. Beautiful day. They come back and she's fried. Fried from lightning. Wonderful gal.
Go back.
So here I am, and I'm in the hall, and I feel as if I got hit by lightning. I mean, like a rope. And I stood there, and I had to catch my breath. And I leaned against the wall. I had the book in my hand because I was going to read while I was in there in the bathroom, And I stood there, and I said, oh, my God, I understand now. It was an epiphany. I finally understood the concept of management. And I stood there, and I couldn't believe it. I was breathing heavily. Folks, this is not a joke. I'm not making this up. This was over 20 years ago. And I stood there, and I'm leaning against the wall and catching my breath. And I said, now I understand. It all came together. And I said to myself out loud, the reason why I do not understand or could not comprehend the meaning of management was because there was no such thing. Crazy, isn't it? Isn't that crazy? Now, this relates to liberty. Because unless we understand the true concept of liberty, and we don't have this epiphany, we will go and make excuses every time we do something which bastardizes our concept of liberty, and we will remain slaves. Now, let me explain when I said there's no such thing. I said, you can manage your resources. You have to. You have to manage your inventory. You have to manage your finances. You have to manage your fleet if you have trucks. You have to manage your data processing. Oh, you have to manage that very, very closely. The one thing that you can never, ever do is manage people. And when I gave my first speech after that revelation, it was a bunch of CEOs, folks, CEOs and their people, their next people in line. They're working presidents, if you will. In a tower in Tulsa, I think the bank tower in Tulsa. I forgot which one it was. And at the end, the place was dead quiet when I was talking.
I bet.
Oh, you have no idea. They looked at me like, this guy has totally lost his mind. This gentleman raised his hand. He said, Mr. Cristiano, I beg to differ with you. I said, please don't beg. I beg you not to beg. I said, please tell me what's on your mind. I want to hear it. And he said, well, and he went on for about 2 minutes as to why management was important in his firm and how he used his principles of management to build a company he had. And I said, thank you very much. I didn't listen to a damn thing he said. I'll be honest with you. I didn't care. I was sitting there drinking coffee. And I said, what? I just have one question. Do you mind if I ask you one personal question?
Uh-oh.
Here it comes.
And he said, no. I said, thank you. I said, how well do you manage your wife?
Oh.
That place went so dead quiet, I swear. If dust fell on a table, you would have heard it. How well do you manage your wife? And I said not a word after that, and neither did anyone else. And it hit home. You better manage your home's financing. You better manage, your inventory, how much food you have. These things you must manage, or else you're going to be in big trouble, especially in these times. But the one thing that you can never do is manage anyone. And I don't manage anyone in my businesses. In fact, if anything, although I own the business, I work for them. I've had no turnover in 9 years.
Wow.
None.
That's something in today's world.
You bet it is.
Yeah.
Because, I don't say anything, but they instinctively know that they are free individuals to do what they want. They want to screw my company? Go right ahead. You want to destroy my company? Be my guest. But people take on this responsibility for themselves. But the government today doesn't allow us to do that. So we all sit around. All of this is relevant, folks. We all sit around waiting for the government to dictate what we can do next. And until you recognize, you understand the true concept of liberty, you will not be free. You will be a slave to your thoughts, and your thoughts have been formed from watching that stupid television, watching everyone laugh, constantly.
Laugh track.
Laugh tracks, as they call it. And of course, we have to use the word awesome every other word because we can't think past the word awesome.
Awesome! Awesome! Awesome!
I hate you. The commercials drive you nuts. And you realize that right now, one third at least, if not one half, of the time spent on television is watching commercials. I saw one where there was an incredible amount of happiness in a family, so much so that it was surreal. You know why, folks? You won't believe this. Because this little kid, I mean, it couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old, was ecstatic that his mother bought vanity paper napkins. And when he saw the vanity paper napkin, he smiled and opened it up and thanked his mother and father. I thought I was going to blow my brains out. Let's take a break. Before I continue, I would want to take a call. We have Lloyd on the phone. He's been holding on for some time, but I want to thank everyone for listening. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio here at 1170 KFAQ. Lloyd, is that you?
Yeah, this is me, Joe.
Lloyd from Henrietta, the crossroads of Oklahoma. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, it does have a crossroads.
What's on your mind? Thank you for calling in, by the way. And what's on your mind this morning?
Well, you started out talking about you watching TV and seeing that the people had more initiative back in the old days. And, of course, they had more initiative because there was more freedom then and more responsibility laid on them. And our government is basically a bunch of control freaks, and they have unlimited funding. And today, people have this lack of initiative that you seem to witness because they have to get permission to do everything in their lives. And the permission comes down from agencies that make regulations. And, of course, the agencies are not the problem. They're just a symptom of the problem. And the regulations are a symptom of the agency. And, of course, the agency is actually a symptom of an uncontrolled government with the spending that's facilitated by the easily borrowed debt from the Federal Reserve. You probably knew I'd get to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, there you go.
By giving control freaks the Federal Reserve a monopoly on the issuance of our currency, the government doesn't have to go to the people anymore to borrow money and tax them directly to put in one of these agencies or start a war or start a social program. They just issue a bond. And there's no responsibility of them to actually face the people face to face and say, hey, we're going to start this agency and we're going to send a bill in your mailbox next week to pay for that agency. They just issue the bond, and the Federal Reserve buys the bond, or someone buys it, but anyway, it comes back to the Federal Reserve where they issue the money to the government, and then they spend the money to control all the people they want. If you want people to have initiative, they have to have liberty.
Absolutely right, Lloyd. You know, Lloyd, I think your sequence was very logical. It gave an excellent summary. It was good critical thinking. You must have no friends.
I have very few.
Of course, I'm only kidding you. Lloyd, very, very well done.
That is, yeah.
Are you a writer?
No.
No? Okay. Well, let me encourage you to write a book, maybe a little small pamphlet on that, and because what you said was not only do I agree with, but it has a nice logical flow and sequence to it. You're right. We are sitting here waiting for someone to make a decision for us. And this starts in our school. you can hold on if you'd like, and I'll rant for a while if you'd like to hold on, or you can take my response off the air. I'll leave that up to you. But I was watching a program on television about Common Core, and that's our new program by the National Education Administration, the NEA. Common Core is a method of teaching and details of teaching, what should be taught, that's vastly different than what we've been doing before. And most states have signed on to it. Of course, Texas said, shove it up your nose. We're not doing it. It is insane. And they had people, in the educators, interviewed. And these educators delineated specifically what was wrong with the program. And when you see what they are trying to teach our children and how they're trying to teach our children, it's sickening. We need to get away. Government is not responsible for educating our children. We, you and I, are responsible for educating our children, Lloyd, thank you very much. If you don't already have a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt, you can send me an email at comments@libertytalkradio.com with a mailing address and T-shirt size, and I'd love to send you a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt, and you can join the hordes of walking billboards promoting liberty.
All righty, thank you.
Fair enough? Okay, thank you so much for calling in. Lloyd brings in an excellent point. One other thing that grasped me, and I'm going to diverse for a second. I just have to say this. But I had a person, a nurse person, stay with me for a little while to get me around the house because I couldn't walk or anything for a couple of days. And she was watching television. And I said, what do you notice about television today? She was telling me about all the series that she listens to. National Scene thing, investigation, Navy. She likes the Navy something.
NCIS.
NCIS, whatever that is, And she said she's in love with the head guy there, the star. Whatever.
Mark Harmon.
Yeah. Whatever, whoever he is.
Preston, you know all about it.
Well, he was in Summer Rental.
Yeah.
Summer Rental. That's another movie that I'm sure.
No, Summer School. It was called Summer School. Sorry.
Yeah.
Summer School.
At the top of my list, Preston, I can tell you that.
Well, it should be. It should be.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
And so I asked her this question. I said, I want to see if she was aware. The problem is, as Americans, we are not aware. I said, look at that scene. And I just picked any scene as it went on. She said, well, what's wrong with it? I said, they're in someone's office. She said, yep. And I said, why aren't there any lights on? She said, what do you mean? I said, are there any lights on? She looked carefully. She said, well, no, there's just a light on the desk. Someone walks in this person's office in the middle of the day. It's an agency office. There's fluorescent lights all over the place. In fact, in the background, there were 4 of these spotlights. Only one of the 4 were on. And, of course, that one spotlight was on the person. And, of course, half of the person's face was totally black. You couldn't see it. There was no light at all. And they were talking. And they're sitting in this office that should be well lit in total darkness. We went scene after scene after scene, and everyone was in total darkness. Now, do you think that the American public would say, would someone turn on the lights? We are so numb to what we are watching. We can listen to 2 people carrying on a conversation in an office with no lights on and perceive it to be normal. And I said, this is our problem. And then I went on a rant on that. Then you can imagine what I said after that.
And she gave you another pain pill to quiet you down.
And then we start, there's no association anymore. There was an ad. An ad came on. It said, now you can get 2.75% interest mortgage. And that's because, and no closing costs. And we can thank the Federal Reserve for that.
No.
Yeah, it says we thank the Feds. No, the Feds. It said the Feds or the Federal Reserve. It said we can thank them for that. In other words, what we experienced back in 2008, that whole collapse, we are precipitating again. We are giving mortgages to people with security and qualifications being ignored altogether or totally secondary or an afterthought, right? So we can get them in houses to prop up the economy. And then we say housing sales are up 17%. The economy's on a rebound. And no one is thinking. No one. They said, how come people's income, people's wealth is down? Generally, people's wealth is down, and yet housing sales are up. How could that be? I have less money. Let me go out and buy a new house.
Huge paradox there, isn't it?
You know, and we don't think. We can no longer connect the dots because we're too busy watching my favorite program, the WWF. There are tens of thousands of people cheering on two people in a ring, one person weighing 120 pounds, the other weighing 410 pounds,
right.
And they're in the same weight class. Folks, when are we going to wake up? And we cheer. They go crazy.
Oh,
and they have signs, you know.
Signs, yeah.
And
signs.
everyone who gets in the ring, everyone, I had to watch this. Everyone in the ring, everyone who walks into the ring is in fact, oh yeah, they have a costume on, you know, and each one of them is the world's heavyweight champion or the world's
Intercontinental champion, USA
World Continental,
champion.
Intercontinental, Interstellactic, you know, champion. We have no idea. We have no idea. They don't tell you the weight class. They don't tell you the height, weight, nothing. But you have a midget in there with, Andre the Giant. They're in the same weight class. Would you please help me? Folks,
wrestling isn't real.
You see, and yet it's not. Of course, it's not real. I mean, we know it's not real, but yet to the world, this is real.
No,
this is the reality. This is the new
people.
reality. This is America. This is the sissification of America.
You don't think those people that go and pay the ticket and scream and holler don't think it's real?
Yeah,
that's scary.
Yeah, that's scary. And they paid big money. A friend of mine went to one. He was scared out of his mind when he went. He was afraid for the people around him. Yeah. All right, hey, we're going to wrap it up. But before we go, I want to encourage everyone, listen, become independent. Take a stance. Do what you know you have to do. Go to Go Liberty Food. That's GoLibertyFood.com. Stock up on food because things are going to get bad. Sooner or later, they're going to get bad. And, of course, for all of your firearm needs, I mean, I love to go to McCool's Firearms. They have antiques and relics and whatever, and as well as new firearms. And they are great people. You can visit with them and discuss with them and spend an hour, and they'll love to talk guns with you. McCool's Firearms, and for your food, go to GoFood.com. And if you're not feeling well, like sometimes the doctor says I'm fine, but, I just don't feel well. I go to Jenks Health and Nutrition,